to give you things to make you stop and hopefully react a little better. So Josh, thank you so much for giving us 30 minutes of your time, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Twana. I'll start out by saying I am not classically trained in this, I guess, topic. I've dealt with many people, and in law enforcement, we deal with people on their worst days. We don't usually bump into people like today, where you guys are, you want to talk to me, you're happy we talked about Easter. So for the most part, what I have is just a few notes that I put together in a PowerPoint with some experience that I've had. I've been working, this will be my 25th year for the police department, and 21 or so of those were as a night shift sergeant. So I dealt with the grievances on the street when someone would have an issue with the way they were treated, or if they felt that way. So that's where I get most of my experience. And Twan and I were talking before, and there's not a lot that isn't common sense here. The hard part is the execution of talking to people that is going to de-escalate. And sometimes there's no way to do that. Honestly, you can talk to people, you can listen to people, and if they're set that you are wrong, then you'll have to agree to disagree. But so I'm going to try and share this screen, Twana. Let me know if it's not working again. And these are just notes. So once I share this, I can't see you guys, but so if you have questions, just kind of chime in. There is a number for the police department up on the top. If you have questions or need assistance from us, call us anytime. That does come to me as well. Otherwise, you can email me through the saukprairiepd.com website. So basically, when I talk to people, whether I'm investigating something or talking to a person who has a grievance with my department, and I've seen it on both sides. I've been confronted by people who are upset with the quality of service they've received from my department. And I've also been on the other end where I've received what I believe to be poor service and how to interact with people. So these considerations, this is how I live my life as a police officer. And you guys all know this. But the reason that I put it on here is just to think about it is who are we talking to? Do we know this person? Are they known to our department? Are they brand new? Are they from out of the area? And then what is their grievance? What's the main issue? Why is it a problem for them? When did it occur? Where did it occur? And for you guys, if you're dealing with people, where did it occur? Are you dealing with them face to face, or are you dealing with them on the phone? And there's differences because you can hang up on people on the phone if it gets to a point where you feel that the conversation is going nowhere and you're being treated poorly. You don't have to talk to them. You can set up a different time, but that could lead to some problems down the road. So if this is a known person for me, if one of my officers would even come in here, I know how to deal with them individually because people are different. Officer X, you need to explain things differently than Officer Y. So that comes into play if someone comes into my office and says, hey, your officer said this or did that. If I know that person, then I can talk to them at a different level. And then obviously I want to find out what happened. And words are important. So you can't just say, well, what's your issue? Ask them, what can I help you with? And use those words to your advantage. If someone calls me and says your officer, said something rude to me, and I tell them, no, they didn't. I'm almost positive they would never say that. You're starting a confrontation that you don't need to do. But then you get into that, why is this an issue? Is it something where your staff or the service was poor? Is that something that we can correct? So those are just a couple of notes there. As far as conflict management, I can't take it personally. That's the biggest thing that I can tell you when someone comes into your place of business or calls you with a grievance and they're frustrated and they say they could call you an idiot. They could say that you don't know what you're talking about, or it must be your first day. I've gotten that one a few times. You must be new here. You can't take it personal no matter what they say. They are not upset with you personally. They're upset with the service that they believe that they paid for And that's what it all boils down to is, are they getting what they want? So I look at empathy, and with empathy, I look at if I've made a grievance with a restaurant or a sales team in a place of business, and I say, I didn't get the service that I paid for. If I go in there and I get ramped up and I start talking down to people, or I get upset, I know how that would make them feel. But I also understand that when people call me and they're upset, I have that empathy for them. I understand that they're frustrated, that they could be scared, that they may have paid a lot of money for a service, and they feel that, they're just angry. So you have to be empathetic with that. Staying calm, that is one thing where you might have to listen on the phone or have someone in front of you for 5 minutes with them just doing nothing but talk. And they could be yelling. You have to stay calm. The main thing that we get called to as officers when there's confrontations like this is when someone comes in and they use aggressive language, and then the staff member uses aggressive language back and forth. Someone could say something or do something that's going to get them in trouble. You could lose your job, or you could be face to face with one of my officers for disorderly conduct, and that's not what we want. So looking at being helpful, and that's what we all do. You guys are in customer service, you're in public relations, and the different spots that you're in, and that's what I do. I want to be as helpful as possible. And when someone calls and they feel that they need help with my staff or an event, I try and help them. And that's complete honesty. It's not smoke and mirrors. I want to find out what I can do better. So keep that in mind as well. We have certain policies and procedures, and I'm sure you guys do in your businesses, and make sure you're following your policy. If you don't have a policy for disgruntled customers or I guess complaints and grievances, maybe you should look into that, because it's a guideline for your forward-facing people, the public-facing. If my staff out in the front is confronted, they have step-by-step on what they should do, how to try and help the people that come into the police department, and do it in a nice way. And if they don't, then it comes to me. And if they violate policy, then they could be facing discipline. But the policies and the procedures that we have, it's our playbook. Not only if I'm handling an OWI, a drunk driver, or if I'm handling a citizen complaint, I follow the playbook, and then I know that I'm doing it the right way. And then obviously when to disengage or get help, that one comes back to some of your policies and your procedures. I've dealt with people on the street that for some reason don't like me. I don't understand that, because I am delightful. And there's other people in our department that they may relate to better. And it goes both ways. Some of my guys will be talking to people on the street, and if I show up, they will completely disengage with that officer and speak to no one but me. Use that to your advantage. If you're at the counter and they don't want to talk to you, they want to talk to someone else, they feel more comfortable, you may get to that end result much, much quicker and less painfully if they want to talk to someone else. Don't take it personal. If at any point in time you find yourself in a situation where you feel uncomfortable to the point that you feel that you're in danger, that's a good time to disengage. If someone's face to face with you at the counter, then get some help and just tell that person, I'll go get someone else to help bring in a manager, even if they're not asking for it. Because if you feel that you're in a position where you could be harmed, this does happen, then you need to get some help. And you can always call us. That should be the first call. If someone is to the point where they are disorderly, making threats, just being loud and boisterous, call us and we will get there. So you need to know when to do that. Other things that I look for when I'm talking to people is I like to listen to everything that they say. A lot of times someone will call in and they just want to vent. They want nothing more than to bend the chief of police's ear and say, whatever, X, Y, Z, your officers are terrible, you're poorly trained, how can you guys do this? And then at the end of it, I ask them, what would you like have me to do here? What's the end result that you like to see? And a lot of times they just tell me, thanks for listening, and they want us to become better. So I don't argue with people. I listen. I tell them what I can and cannot do based on state law. That's where it's easier for me than sometimes for you guys, because I can fall back on state law. I cannot say certain things. I cannot do certain things. I can't make promises. But I can definitely define the next steps. If someone wants to file a grievance against my officers, I will give them all the information. I will tell them how to do that, and I will assist them in doing it. And it's just part of good communication and staying consistent. If someone comes in and you give them an answer and they rephrase it and you rephrase your answer, it's going to cause confusion, and confusion can cause more issues down the road. Know your policies and your procedures. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. If someone in your agency or under your span and control makes a mistake, it's okay. And as a manager or in customer service, our job is to try and rectify that and mitigate anything that would come out of it. So it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to try and fix them, and to try and get that person to understand that you are doing your best to fix anything. And that's key. And that's why I put right in the middle there, acknowledge and thank them for the feedback. And I tell that to people all the time. Thank you for calling me and telling me what happened at that time, because that's the only way that I can ensure that my agency is going to get better. And if I walk around here saying we don't make mistakes and we're perfect, then we're never going to get better. It's the good to great model. If you think that being good is good enough, then you'll never become great. And the only way that I know how we're doing is when people call me and tell me how it's going. So when people call, I tell them, thank you for calling and complaining, because it'll make us better. So this is not a catch-all, and I don't have all the answers to any of the, every situation. It's just not possible for me to tell you that. But these should be some things that you can at least think about in the future if someone does call or stop in and they're upset. I'm going to try and stop the screen here.
Yeah.
Can you see me now?
Yes.
So I know it was kind of brief and it's kind of all over the place. But the problem with this is that, like I said, there are so many different types of grievances that people can bring forward to you. If they don't like the service, then customer relations and customer service tells you to try and help that person out. And that's what we do. So if they're screaming and hollering at you, you don't have to listen to that. You can tell them, I appreciate you coming in. And I'll tell you what, I do have some time on my calendar in the future, and put it on the calendar, have them come and talk to you again or call them. And that kind of ends that situation. So, but there's no one right method to doing this. So,
Josh, I have a question. A few people here are individual employees or one owner businesses. What happens if they are approached one-on-one with an angry customer in front of them? How do they discreetly contact you if they feel like they need that help? How would you recommend that? Do you confront the person and say, I'm going to need to call the police, or just try to dial anonymously?
well, that is where, who are you dealing with on that? Who, what, why, when, where? Who is this person? Do you know them? Do you not know them? And to what level they're at? And it depends on the person that you are. I mean, I can't tell you the best way that Tawana is going to handle this, because I don't know your experiences. But for me personally, you have a little bit of distance, make sure you're in a safe place, and tell them, I understand that, you're upset. I appreciate that you came in here we're not going to get anywhere if we continue down this path. I need to be able to speak. That might help you out. And if they continue, then you can disengage to a safe location and dial. We have had people in the past say, we've said we're going to call the police if you don't leave. And if they don't leave, then follow through on that and call. If they're just upset and threatening, the best thing you can do is dial that phone and like I say, a lot of times people, once they see that you're actually dialing, will either leave or try and calm down a little bit, because then they're going to want to talk to us. They're going to say, yeah, call the police. I want to tell the police what happened. I don't work in retail. I don't do that. If it's a civil matter, sometimes the people think, well, I didn't get my product, I didn't get my service, call the police and you'll be arrested. So a lot of times if you say, the way that you're speaking to me is inappropriate, and I'm going to ask that you please don't use profanity and we can discuss this, or I'm going to call the police. Maybe they'll say, go ahead and call them. But I would, if you're in need, pick up the phone and dial it. And if you dial 911 and just set the phone down, we're coming, because all the phones are pinged. So if it gets to that situation, dial 911 and we'll get there.
Yep. One question on that is, does your department offer active shooter training, Josh?
We have had some people in the past that have done the ALICE training, what to do in those situations. Right now, currently don't have one that's certified, but we can definitely set anything up. So, based on what our response is going to be, if you have a business inside Sauk City or Prairie du Sac in the villages, and you want us to come in there and take a look at your facility, that would be fantastic, because if something happens, at least we've been in there once or twice. We have a feel for the layout of the building. We can give tips, and as soon as I can get a few people through that training, then we will definitely do that. I know that we've done it in the past. So.
Okay, perfect. One thing before we open it up to questions that I wanted to address, this is more from a customer service standpoint. Josh is the expert. Okay, you've got someone, they're angry. Here's some tips on how to do with it at the moment. But I wanted to be sure that we touched on just how we encounter people and how we set ourselves up for success at the beginning of a day. So if you're in retail or any type of service industry or restaurants, I think it's important to train your staff to understand their role as a worker, to engage people positively. And a lot of times that's nothing more than, good morning, how are you doing? Thank you for coming in today. If you're in retail, are you local or are you visiting from outside of the area? Because most people are coming in with 10 things on their mind. Maybe they're in a bad mood that has absolutely nothing to do with you, your product, your service. They just want to yell or be annoyed with something. And I think if you'll take a moment just to kind of greet them in a way that's engaging, like you would a friend, it may take them down a notch just to be more aware of their attitude and how they respond. Verbal cues, but also nonverbal. If you've worked with me at all, you know, if I walk into a retail establishment and people don't say, hi, how are you doing? I'm from the South. I am probably not going to buy anything from you, especially if I walk all the way around. So to me, that's just an engaging way. But if I walked in angry and you tried to make simple conversation or ask how my day was going, it just makes you feel better. And I think so many times we're all busy, especially in the service world, that you just try to get, what do you need? How can I help you? And you forget that the person on the other side of that counter is a human, and that they may need emotional connections, social connections. So I just wanted to be sure to start with that very basic, and forgot to do that in my intro. But at this time, I want to open it up to Josh. If you have questions that you can ask on examples or scenarios that you have had. Any questions for Josh? Well, or Chief Sherman, I should say.
Josh is fine. You can call me Josh.
Hey, Tawana, and just extending a little bit what you were just saying there, as far as a service organization or retail organization and how they greet, how you might train or lead them to ask those types of questions. I would extend that also to really any organization. we have several people at McFarland Manufacturing, and being able to greet the team as they come in, you learn what's going on in their life sometimes, and you can de-escalate your peers, your colleagues, by also just engaging them in that same way, just being pleasant. And so this works, I think, regardless of whether you're in a service or not service. A lot of people carry a lot of baggage around, and it, they're just primed and ready to blow sometimes. So you got to figure out how to poke and release.
Yeah. I think that's a good point, Todd. I'm reminded of a video that we did on a training such as this, just the baggage that people carry with them through the day, and all of the people that you come across. Some are struggling to keep their roof over their head. Some haven't paid their power bill. They have children that need money in their lunch account and they don't have it. And those stress begin to pack on top of each other. And like Todd said, it can be a coworker coming in. You may say something that you would say any other day of the week and it would not cause an issue. But on this particular day, they are so burdened with the stresses of life and what's going on in their personal life that they react differently. Maybe they yell or they get angry and it causes a scene. And so I think, just to your point, Todd, any relationship in life, just being mindful to pick up on those cues right away, that if they seem off and you're comfortable, ask, hey, do you need someone to chat with? Now, in a business situation, you just have to accept that sometimes life gets heavy and people are angry for things in that relationship we're never going to know. But just don't hold the grudge. And as Josh was saying early, just really actively listen to them and their needs. Other questions? None? Any tips you all would have from the workplace? Let's see which business deals with the most angry customers on here. Who has some examples?
I won't volunteer any angry customers or claim that we have more of those, but because that would seem counterproductive. But I will say, it's interesting, Josh, you brought up several points on how to react or seek to understand and so forth. I would just add that, like, holding a grudge is one step that wasn't mentioned, but I think it's important that when you have an interaction with somebody, that it doesn't then escalate to telling your friends and all your coworkers and all this stuff about this individual. You want to inform people so that they're aware and they can manage that situation better, but you also want the next time that customer comes in or that person comes by to have as much objective opportunity for a good situation as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Like, say, if I send my officers on the street and you guys put workers out on the floor and places like that, every time someone comes in, like Tawana and Todd were saying, if you're just overall nice to people, and it doesn't have to be over the top, but when people come in over and over and over again and they see you, they're less apt to turn that into a bad situation on that one day. When they feel wrong, they'll walk up to you and they'll feel comfortable. It's going to build a relationship that can last, and it can always fracture. At any point in time, I can have some of the biggest supporters from the police department come in here and they could slam their fist on my desk at any point in time. But when I talk to people on the street that know me, they understand what I've done for the last X amount of years, and they understand that. And it goes the same way for you guys out there too. When I deal with you guys, it's always a good situation, and I'm less apt to go in there and cause a scene because I know you people and the way that you guys respond to customers here in the Sauk Prairie area. So that's just, it's just kind of a carryover. You're kind of putting positive notes into your bank, and the more that you can put positive into your bank later on in life, you might have to make a withdrawal when someone comes in there a little bit upset, and then you can kind of remind them how things went the last couple of times, and that you're there to help. A lot of times, we don't get called to this very often in town, and that's because of the quality of people that work in our community. So you guys should all be proud of the way that you do this. I wish I had a magic wand or a potion to give you guys and say, this is how it's going to work every time, and this will get you out of a situation, but it's not possible to do that. So, but that's a good point.
Yes. In our final minutes here, one of the things that I just wanted to remind you is that Josh's email is in the chat box, and we have one more comment that just came in. Yeah, insurance agent. The only time they're calling is when something is wrong. So they get upset customers all the time. Yeah, for sure. And I think knowing that, part of what I was going to end with was you have to actively practice how you're going to handle angry or upset customers. I don't think that we should assume that every employee we hire comes from a place where they have been taught how to handle hard situations or to have difficult conversations. And I think that's one of the things in working with businesses and HR teams. So many times you spend all this effort to find the right person, to hire them, but then you spend 3 to 4 days teaching them the job, but you don't think about all of the external things that may come into play. And you really haven't thought about, is this person I hired capable of handling difficult conversations? And so I think as Josh was talking about policy and procedure, you also, whether you're a 2-person shop or a 200-person shop, have to play equal importance and be committed to training every single employee and continuous training to remind people how to have these conversations, ways to handle angry customers. And it's not just thinking to yourself, what would I do in this situation? But actively role playing some of these scenarios with your team. There are people out there that can help you. We just had a great training session last week in person from an actor with American Players Theater. She had us role playing, and thinking on your feet is critical, but not everyone can do that. So I encourage you, as you end this call today, to really think about your team. Think about the people you're putting as that frontline point of conduct, and really spend time talking with them to say, are you comfortable when angry people come in and present to you? How do you handle it? Do you feel like you need training? Do you feel like you're good at responding that way? Because if you don't know the people that you have in front dealing with this, you're not going to be prepared to help them. And so I do encourage you to spend some time doing that. Chief Sherman, I would like to thank you for coming in today. It makes us feel better when we know our chief's name, his face, how to get in touch with him, and that all of your officers are around to help us. A reminder, I would take him up on having his staff come over, look at your business, give you best practices on what to happen if there was an active shooter. Hopefully we don't have to deal with that, but also an angry, belligerent customer, like where should your cash register be and adjacent to the door and all of those different things. So I appreciate your time today. I hope you have a few tips that you can take and help your employee and your teams grow. And Josh, do you mind staying on for just a couple of minutes?
Absolutely.
If you'll have specific questions, feel free to stay in and ask one-on-one. Otherwise, you all go out and make it a great day. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.